Welcome to the Village in Howard. TBIH, as it's commonly known, is an organization for Howard County residents who are 55 or older. TBIH enriches the lives of county seniors to age in place, to socially connect with others, and to remain active as long as possible. This includes educational activities like the Life Planning Series offered this fall. If you would like to find out more about TBIH, you can talk to me after the Q&A or pick up a brochure on the table. Today we continue the 6th session TBIH Life Planning Series. Besides today's housing session, we had an overview session and a legal session. And we'll have sessions on aging in community, home care, and crisis navigating. We meet every other Wednesday at 10 a.m. here in the TBIH office. You can register on TBIH's website or call the TBIH office at 443-367-9043. We hope you can join us. Today we'll cover different housing options and their typical costs. You'll learn practical, realistic information to help you decide the housing that is best for you at different stages of your post-retirement. Why do we need to plan this phase of our lives? Aren't we supposed to be retired and doing what we really want to do? We hope you'll see the reason to start or re-examine the housing parts of this plan to help yourself, your future caregivers, and your loved ones through this phase. I want to take a moment to make you aware of a new term. You've heard of aging in place. It's being replaced by aging in community. As a broader term, aging in community emphasizes both keeping people at home and connecting through social networks and community-based supports and services so they can stay safe at home. Both terms may be used interchangeably during this series. So let's welcome today's speaker. Ellen Perticone is involved in many organizations. She owns Senior Placement Navigators and is a member of the Gerontological Association and an advisory board member of the Baltimore County Department of Aging Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. She also has experience with dementia and Alzheimer's by being a certified dementia practitioner and volunteering as a community educator with the Alzheimer's Association. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I have been in this room before with a different hat on from the Alzheimer's Association, and I recognize some of you from, I think it was pre-COVID. I gave a couple of different educational talks, and I do that to volunteer. Today we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on housing. I am a huge fan of the Village in Howard. I love the concept. I tell all kinds of people about it, and we want me to move over? Is that good? Okay. Okay. Just let me know if I'm cutting it off. So today we're going to talk about options of housing, and I have a good bit of experience in this. I actually help people do this, and I have connected and worked with the government resources that are available. So I help people navigate the processes. But let's start. Okay, so let's talk about the housing. So aging independently. Oh yeah, let's turn the lights. So we have choices. We have basically two choices. We can age in place at home, that's one choice, or we can downsize from home. There are two choices. So we either stay or you go. So for people who want to age in place at home, a lot of people might choose that. They might end up needing to retrofit their house, and that could be a stair glide, it could be handrails, it could be walk-in showers, ramps, things like that. Lighting is a big thing that a lot of people don't recognize, but that is a big thing that makes a big difference. And decluttering, because If you've lived in a house, we've got lots of stuff that we might not need. So, okay, is that good? During this session, we will have time for questions and answers, but feel free to interject, or if you have something to share, it's absolutely fine. Okay, so if you're downsizing from your home, what are your choices? You might go to a senior living retirement community, and they are known as CCRCs, also known as life plan communities, and we'll talk about them in detail. You can transition to a senior living apartment or a condo. Those are options. Or transition to an for independent people, to a senior living community, which is monthly fee for services. So they're all a little bit different. So we're going to explore what that looks like. So downsizing. Why do we do it? What's the advantages? What's the point here? One of the main things, I think, are the freedom from the large house and the responsibilities that go with that, which are both financial, logistic, and just everything. Someone might feel less isolated and more connected and actually safer in a community because you'll have supports. Communities also offer social aspects. Now, with the Village in Howard, you've got lots of things going on, but in the communities themselves, they oftentimes have calendars of events and things to do as well, and ways to connect with other people. Some of them offer communal dining, outings and activities, and then solo agers, and those are people who are either single, widowed, or divorced, and you're a solo ager, so that gives a support system. So those are some of the reasons why people would make a difference. So let's talk about, we're going to start with this, the continuing care retirement community. And that is the type when you buy into, you make a large entrance fee. And that entrance fee is based on the size of the unit. The requirement is that people enter that. They must be independent, physically and cognitively. The size of the apartment determines the size of the entrance fee, but it's usually a couple $100,000 or more. And then you're still required to pay a monthly fee. Part of that includes you will have a full kitchen, usually laundry appliances that go with it. There are dining options, restaurant-style dining, and some have meal credits or certain meals are included. There are different ways they do that. And some of them offer salon services, religious services, trips, seminars. This is the whole community. I mean, Vantage Point would be an example, and some of you might be familiar with that one. Some of them allow pets, but not all of them. And the person is really independent. What they don't offer are medical services, and they don't typically offer, I mean, they might have a clinic that you could go get a checkup, but there's not ongoing services. There's not home health, that you have to be independent. Now, sometimes if you're living in a place like that and you want to hire help, you can. So that's an option. And one of the main benefits of this type of community is that the higher levels of care are offered as needed. Yes?
The large entrance fee is needed for a reason. What do they do with it?
What do they do with it?
Because you're paying a monthly fee as well.
Yes, you are. Yes,
So
you
what
are.
is it
And that's a
on?
very good question. Okay, so that would be a good question for them. But my suspicion is they use your money to make money. Okay? That is your psychological commitment to, this is where I'm going to be. I just sold my big house, or my house, and I have this money, and so now I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to live in this unit. You don't own the unit. You are living there, okay? That is still part of your estate. You haven't lost it. So it's, for the resident, it's like in a holding pattern. Part of the reason they have that is for these communities, there are financial qualifications. They want to make sure that if you're going to age there, you know, whether it's assisted living or memory care or skilled nursing, that you theoretically have enough in your resources with both assets and income. So By doing that, that entrance fee is there to be held. During your life, if you at some point find out, uh-oh, I'm out of money, and there's still bills, and so then you tap into that, and you use that. Does that make sense? Yes.
Is that where the long-term care insurance would be helpful? And I can for the large.
Yes, it can be helpful if you were in assisted living, memory care, not independent living. So yes, it could be very helpful. Yes.
Since it's a excuse me, we'll have a Q&A at the end, so if
Okay,
You
I had
can
just said that you have questions, but that's okay. We'll just continue. I might cover this, but write it down on that little pad there. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So let's say, and no one plans this, I realize it, everyone wants to be healthy, and then one day, that's the end of it, right? But assisted living is something that is really about resident safety. Okay, so if someone's living in independent living and they're bopping along and they're fine, great. But if someone starts falling, or someone has a life incident and safety is compromised and the person is not able to be safe by themselves, a transition is determined by the nursing staff and the family. It's not a forced situation, it is a conversation, right? Does this person need more help? There are some options. They can transition over to assisted living, they can hire help if they choose to. But in independent living, they need the people to be safe. And one of the biggest things that happens with residents is they might start mixing up their medication. That's one of the first signs that there's an issue. And that can cause a big problem. So assisted living is to help with activities of daily living. And they include eating, bathing, rooming, toileting, and mobility. So if someone needs any of that help, that could be appropriate. And 3 levels of care, there could be more different levels of care that they subdivide to. So usually for long-term care insurance to address that, you might need assistance with 2 activities of daily living, and it would be in your contract or agreement with the insurance company. So if someone transitions to assisted living, a care plan is created based on what the person's perceived needs are by nursing, and they follow it. If that needs to be adjusted, and the care plan will dictate what level of care the person is. That in part has to do with the price. So let's say after someone's there 30 days and they might either formally or informally do a reevaluation. They're going to give someone a chance to get used to the place, to know the lay of the land, but see, okay, are we meeting their needs? Do they need more help? Oftentimes they have a situation where there's a call button, okay, so you can call for help if you need that. But let's say if someone needed help with showering and you have a shower schedule, then you'll have a care staff member that comes to help you, and that's on their schedule as well. So that's just an example. Staff is available 24/7. That's important, and they also provide medication management. So what that looks like in a community like assisted living is that the assisted living is contracted with a pharmacy. And what will happen, and you don't have to use their pharmacy, they make it so it's so much easier. That pharmacy will keep track of your refills, any changes. They have deliveries to the assisted living, and so you don't have to worry about chasing around the pharmacies. They'll bill your insurance for you, so it does make things a lot easier. But you usually don't have to use their pharmacy if you choose not to for some reason. So the cost for assisted living is substantially higher than it is for independent living. Let's go to the next slide, please. So assisted living is overseen by a delegating nurse, and that is an RN who has a higher designation. And one of the things that they need to do is every 45 days put eyes on the residents and check the paperwork to make sure everything's in order. And assisted living is a social model. So what that means is they do not have doctors on staff, and it is a social model that helps with the ADLs. So they partner with primary care providers that will come in, and podiatrists, and PT, and OT, and speech therapy. Some offer dental, some offer dermatology. So these are resources that will come to the community for the convenience of the residents, but that is between the resident and the provider. And they'll bill insurance just like any other. You could still choose to stay with your other specialist or your other doctor. You don't have to use theirs. But by that time, a person may or may not be driving anymore. It might not be as easy. So it's an option. Also in assisted living, 3 meals and snacks are served daily, and they're communal. So they're in some kind of dining room. The larger places offer choices, almost like a restaurant. And in an assisted living, there's no full kitchen. If anything, you might have a kitchenette, but not all of them offer that. They offer studio, which is kind of like a hotel suite, if you will. 1 bedrooms, some of them offer 2 bedrooms. And like I mentioned, the fees are higher than independent living because you are getting more services. And that all determines by what your care needs are. And pets are seldom allowed because staff cannot be expected and deal with the pets. Now, if a person has a pet, they can have someone come in and take care of their pet, whether a family member or someone that they hire. So that's a possibility. Okay, so let's move on to memory care. Now remember, we're still in the CCRC because we came in independently, because that's how you have to, they admit people only independently. They don't admit, because the plan is you pay that big lump sum, you have your rates, you live your life, and if you need that big lump sum at any point to pay for your care, it's there for you. If you don't ever need it and you never use it, it goes back to your estate. And you can always leave. You can always leave. The one thing to know is that, and this is kind of important, with the continuing care places, they've changed over the years. So it used to be, okay, let's just say you $400,000, you bought a unit. And at some point, if you decided to move, for whatever reason, you're going to go live with your sister in Iowa, or go to Florida, or whatever, your entrance fee is refundable. Now, it is not 100% refundable. Some of the places offer you, well, how about if it's 80% refundable and here's your monthly fee, or it's 50% refundable and here's your monthly fee. It's really 6 of one, half dozen the other. My perception of that is it's a marketing ploy, because instead of saying yes or no, you're saying A or B. And I've done the math. It's like, okay, I don't really know which one works out better here. But you have choices. There are some communities that use the word amortize, and they say after 50 months, your fee that you paid amortizes. I'm like, I think I know what that means. I asked them, what exactly does it mean? It's gone. It's gone. It's no longer part of your estate. Why in the world anyone would do that is beyond me, because that's not the norm, but it's out there. So these are important things to look at if you're considering a continuing care place. So where was I? Okay, so let's say someone moves into an independent living and is fine. Down the road, somebody develops dementia. And a dementia care, which is called a memory unit, is a subset of assisted living. But there are differences. And the 2 main differences with dementia care are that it is a secure unit, that means it's locked. The resident can come and go, but not unescorted for safety reasons. And the other thing they must have to call it a dementia unit is they must have programming or activities specifically geared towards residents with dementia. Not all places offer memory care. Most do, but not all of them There's a higher staff to resident ratio than assisted living because the needs are greater. There is also staff 24/7. Staff are usually trained in dementia care, but that would be a question I'd want to know if I was considering an independent living. They're more expensive than assisted living. Again, more care. And friends and family can visit. They just can't, they can take the resident out to lunch or something like that and bring them back. And rates could be based on a room rate and care cost or a flat fee. I bring this up, and I know this is not why we're here to talk, but what I have noticed, and it's important if anyone's considering moving into a continuing care place, you want to tour all of those places. And you want to insist. And that's not always part of their tour. And for me, if I'm buying this, I want to see what's under the covers. Right? If I'm buying it, the whole point is I can age in place. And so you really want to be able to go visit the assisted living, visit dementia care, and see what you see what you smell, see what you hear, and ask a lot of questions. So there's a lot to this decision, but this is an overview. Okay, let's see what's next. Please. Okay, now we're going to go a little off track for housing, because this is not housing, but I have been in this field long enough to know that sometimes things don't go as we want, right? And let's say if you are living in a community and you fall, or you get hurt, or they're not sure if you hit your head, you might go out to 911. They want to make sure that you are okay. Or even if anybody ends up in the hospital for really a lot of things. It could be a hip replacement. It could be a lot of things. The hospitalization stay is very short, as we're all familiar with, and then you go to rehab, which is short term, and it's a place where you can, typically the main reason is to get stronger, to get better, because you're in the hospital for, I don't know, a day or two or maybe 3, but you're not really ready to go home, so you go to this short-term rehab. And most insurance will cover it to an extent. Here's a couple things that people aren't familiar with rehab. Your contact person is your social worker or case manager. Make contact with them immediately. Do not wait for them to reach out to you, because your discharge starts the day you enter. They are planning that. So the way they do that is every day. So let's say you go to OT and PT, or PT and speech. Whatever you do is documented and measured. The insurance companies evaluate this continuously. And what justifies them to pay for this is that you're continuing to increase and get better and can do more at a specific rate. Not this rate, not plateauing, but a specific rate that they determine. When a person plateaus or is not going as fast as they deem valid to justify the insurance, they start the discharge. And so a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, I'm here for 20 days. Maybe, maybe not. So for people who refuse and say, I'm not gonna do that, I'm not gonna exercise, maybe you can do that once, but if you do that a couple days, they're gonna say, well, why are we here? So that is not really dictated by the rehab, by the insurance companies. So part of that is they have care plan meetings. It can be with the family, it can be with the resident, and it will include the team, which includes PT, OT, dietary, nursing, whatever else is involved. So every department can say, okay, here's what's going on, here's what we need to know. The reason I'm taking the time to go over this piece is because most people don't realize that they only need to give 48 hours notice for discharge. That is not a lot of time. Okay? Even if you're going back home, because if you're going back home, wherever home is, you might want to get a caregiver involved, or family members to help, or the Village and Howard bank of people who help, right? You want to get that set up so that you're not, it's hard enough trying to get your health together, but you want to do this. So they try to give you more than 48 hours notice, but they're not required to give you more. So what happens if you say, well, I'm not ready, I'm not leaving? Well, that's okay. They're not going to kick you out. But what happens is the insurance stops. The rehab stops, because you're discharged. You're still sitting in that bed, and that could cost somewhere between $400 and $500 a day. That's a really expensive hotel room. So, but they don't necessarily tell you this when you get there. And I just know this because I've worked with so many clients who it's like, no, we need to get as much information as we can. Just so you're not blindsided, just so you know, okay, what's next? What's next? Now sometimes, if someone's in rehab, they're gonna go back to the same environment that they came from, right? It could be home, it could be wherever. But there are occasions if someone has a really serious health incident, maybe that's not so easy. Maybe that's not going to work so well. So, so what are our plans going to be next? We have to look at, how are we going to manage the next part? And you can always appeal a discharge. But the issue is this: if they give you 48 hours notice, and they're not going to give you an answer for 48 hours, and the discharge is denied, it's like, okay, time's up. So it's just good to be aware of that. If you ask them all of these things, they will tell you. But in my experience, so many families I've worked with, it's not as though you come in and they tell you all this information, or they're going to give you a sheet explaining what we just talked about. That doesn't necessarily happen. So you might feel like, well, why didn't anybody tell me this? How come I didn't know? So it's just good to know, so you can be a little proactive. Okay, let's see. Oh, we have more. I just talked about that. Okay, patient may come home to IL, AL, or MC. IL is independent living, wherever that might be. AL, assisted living, and MC is memory care. So some of the follow-up medical care could be covered by insurance, and usually, almost always, it is additional PT. The difference is, in a facility, what justifies it is that you're getting it 5 days a week. When you're discharged and you have outpatient, which they can come to you, you don't have to go to them, it is usually maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And their role then is to instruct you, and your job is to do your homework every day, even when they're not there. So that's not an unusual scenario. And so medical care, like PT, OT, if there was wound care, if there's home health, that is covered by insurance. What is not covered by insurance are the activities of daily living. So you might need help with a shower, right? Or maybe need help with other various things, mobility. That is not going to be covered. So just something to know. And then if someone is in an assisted living or memory care, and they are leaving to go back to that environment, a nurse has to come out and verify that they are okay to come back. So a patient who was in independent living might get discharged from a rehab, and now there's news, oh, this person is appropriate for assisted living or memory care. It's not what you went in with, that might not be what you want or what you expected, but if they need help with their ADLs and there's no one to care for them, patient might need 24/7 supervision, and you can hire help, but when you get to 24/7 hired help, that really adds up to about $5,000 to $6,000 a week. It really does. Or a person might have cognitive deficits that are really safety issues. Or if they need a skilled nursing, which is a much higher need of care. So these are not expected, but these things can happen. So I'm just explaining this so that you realize that there is a method to the madness, and a person has a choice in what they do. Okay, how do we prepare? How do we prepare for any of this and all of this? One of the things is we need a power of attorney for health and finance. Power of attorney is this. The senior is the principal. The one they assign is your agent. There's a distinction between health and finance. The distinction with health is that the person, the agent, is to follow the wishes in their best interest. So let me give you an example. If the person says, well, I want to go to the casino and gamble all my money, and you say, that's not in your best interest, I'm not doing it, you have the authority to make that decision. And that is for finance. For health, it's to follow their wishes. So let's say if a person said, I want purple walls and I want my cats on the bed with me. Well, you know their wishes, and if you can accommodate that, you would help them to see if that could happen. So there's two different things. The most practical type is called durable, and then the other type is called springing. So springing is not very practical, and it's not used much, but here's what it means. If I award someone today power of attorney over my finances, and I have durable, that means at that time, they can sign for me, they can make financial decisions for me, they can speak for me, they can carry on. So I want to make sure it's someone I trust. Doesn't have to be a family member, but it could be. Springing means that you cannot represent me unless you have two doctors saying that I am incapacitated. So it's a protection for the principal, but it's not practical because now we have more steps to go through and we can't get to the financial piece to make decisions or pay bills or do anything. So that's the difference. Also, durable means that it's throughout the continuum of the person's life. So for health, I love this. This is called 5 Wishes. I think you can get it at Howard General Hospital. And it is a booklet. And it is a very practical guide of many things that you might not have thought about. It can be much more than when to pull the plug. With mine, I got so detailed. I said, I want accent lighting. I want light pastel walls. I want carpeting. No, I'm serious. Because I envision, what if I'm in a bed and I can't communicate? Right? I can't communicate for whatever reason. I don't want clanging and banging intercoms. I don't want any overhead lighting. I want accent lamps. I want flowers and beauty, and I want my dog. Okay? And maybe a foot rub. Now, that's in that. I told my partner that, and they were like, oh my God, I had no idea. I'm like, yes, I know you didn't. But now you know. Doesn't mean I'm going to get that. I might never be in that situation. But at least they know, and I can put it in writing, and I can have it. Because this is your gift to yourself, really, and to your people in your life. Because if you don't write it down and you don't get specific, they're going to guess, they're going to wonder, am I doing the right thing? Is this what they wanted? I don't know what they want. So there could be more to it. This does not require an attorney. It does need to be notarized and signed by witnesses. And with financial, you don't have to have an attorney. I highly recommend the person would use an attorney just because it's money and you really want to be specific. And then there's a way to sign for power of attorney that a lot of people don't seem to know. If you are an agent for someone, the whole idea of power of attorney, so if I am signing for somebody else and I'm their agent, I'm not personally liable, right? I'm signing my name, Ellen Perticone, as POA for Nancy Smith. If I don't sign it that way, I'm liable. Okay, so that is the key component, and you have the document to prove that. Now, as someone pointed out earlier before the presentation, a document can be updated as often as the person wants to. You can update it every day if you want. And legally, the most recent prevails. So that's about that. That's one way to prepare. And then discuss the financial and healthcare wishes in detail with your agent. So it's one thing, first of all, you don't even have to legally, you don't have to notify your agent. Okay, I'm like that with my power of attorney. If they don't know, and all of a sudden I'm in the hospital, hey, you're the power of attorney. That's not the ideal way to go about it. Because the whole idea is the person to know you and know your wishes. Whether you have told them verbally, ideally verbally and in writing, but when they know you and they know what your wishes are, then they can better follow that through. We can't envision every scenario, but as specific as you can be would make some sense so that they can look out for you and follow your wishes, even if it's not their wishes. That's the key, it's your wishes. So just good to know. There's another document called the MOLST, Maryland Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. It's signed by primary care provider, and it's like a 2-page form. In an assisted living or memory care environment, it is a requirement. And what that piece of paper does, if someone is in an assisted living and they go out to 911, that paper goes with it. And then, get financial clarity of your own, your income, gross and net. What are your liabilities? Not your daily expenses, but liabilities, debt, mortgage, things like that, and what your assets are. And of course, discussing this with, if you have a financial planner, that would make sense, so that whatever you're thinking for the next step, or for an unexpected event, because this happens, at least you have thought about it. So, and I know I'm talking a lot about assisted living and dementia care, but I will share this with you. Nobody wants to go there, ever, 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 ever. But it's always a safety issue. So it might not be part of your plan, but it could be part of your journey. So let's move forward. Okay, so senior apartments. Those are, or independent living. Are we running out of time? How much time do we have?
The camera only does 30.
Oh! So how much time do we have?
No.
Okay, so let's talk about these senior apartments. Someone was telling me earlier today that was the way to go. I can't get scammed. I sold my house. The money's working for me, and I'm living in an apartment, and I have no cares in the world. And that's great. That could be with any apartment. So one that's geared towards seniors, usually there's an age criteria, 55 plus, no kids can live there, that type of thing. But they also have accommodations for safety, right? Handrails, better lighting, walk-in showers, things that are geared to make your life easier. Some of them have security services or some kind of security, so you don't feel like I'm putting my key in the door and someone could be behind me, that type of thing. You pay monthly rent, so that's really all there is to it. Sometimes they provide a concierge, so it runs the gamut, like just about anything else. Depending on the varieties, amenity determines the price, right? There are two really nice ones in Columbia, Regency Crest and Evergreen near the mall. Those are just two, and I consider them like luxury apartments for seniors. And they're nice, but it's a rental situation. And that can be really fine for people, and they can be happy with that. There's no major commitment, but there's no clinical or medical help either. So that's kind of like, okay, this works for now. We'll just reevaluate as I go along, and people can do that as they like. So, can we go to the next slide? Okay, now, I'm gonna make this really quick. If someone had to go directly from home and go to an assisted living, or say your partner or your spouse has got dementia and you have done what you can, but you are done, you cannot do anymore, there's a whole process. And this is regulated by the Maryland State Government, the Office of Healthcare Quality, which is through the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So there are regulations. But even within them, there is a huge array of prices and services and amenities. And just because they advertise and have fancy ads doesn't mean they're the best place. So usually the 4 things that dictate that would be financial. What is affordable,
right? What is within what you can budget for? The other one is health and health history. What are the needs of the person? Can this place accommodate it? And possible future needs. The other thing is it in your area? How far do you want to go or family want to be? And then the timing, of course, with their availability. And these places don't pay for everything. There's a couple other expenses that you need to kind of back out and budget. You still have to pay for your healthcare insurance, your healthcare premiums, your co-pays, deductibles. They do not cover nutritional supplements like Boost or Ensure, any kind of adult undergarments. They don't cover that. They may or may not cover haircuts and cable, so it varies. It varies. There's a lot of choices out there. And then skilled nursing. That is the highest level of care. It's really the last resort. And that is something that assisted living cannot accommodate. So if someone would need a feeding tube or a ventilator or continuous treatments, and it's quite expensive, $9,000 to $15,000 a month, and it's chronic medical conditions that cannot be, it's not appropriate setting for a hospital, but you need a whole lot more help than assisted living. And those are overseen by a medical doctor. So typically what happens with them is that people pay, you have to pay, unless you have long-term care insurance, and then if you outlive your resources, and there are situations for like spouses, then the person goes on Medicaid. How to pay? Most of it's private pay, out of pocket expenses. Long-term care insurance is great. There is a subsidy for assisted living, for the smaller assisted livings, but there's financial criteria. You can't make more than a certain amount. You can't have more than a certain amount. Aid and attendance is a military benefit for those who have served in the military during specific times of conflict. It's a good benefit. So I always ask people, have you served in the military? It's also good for surviving spouses. So that's something a lot of people don't know about. Okay, what's next? Okay, community home-based waiver. This is governmental health. It's really a needs-based program. So you have to meet that criteria. And Medicaid. They have Medicaid for people at home, Medicaid for assisted living, but it is really for the neediest of the needy. And that tells more about it. Okay, what's next? Additional resources. Okay. Howard County Department on Aging. Howard County has got a great deal of resources for all of this and a lot more. So there's something called Maryland Access Point, and that is a statewide program. So they will cover anything related to the statewide programs, and then the Howard County Department on Aging focuses on what is offered in Howard County. There's also resource guides, and I've just brought a couple to show you. This is by the Howard County Department on Aging. It has a lot of the services that they offer and explains them with contact information. This is something called a resource book. I will share with you, there's a lot of good information here, but the listings here are not necessarily inclusive or updated. So it can be a source, but it's not the ultimate source. Just know that. Also under the Association of Parkinson's, Parkinson's Foundation. Oh well. They have associations with so many resources, and most all of them are free. And really, any chronic disease these days just about has an association that offers education and resources for free, which is really good to take advantage of. The county has had an expo for seniors every year except for this year. They are not holding it this year. When I asked them what they are doing instead, they said they're having smaller ones. And I said, tell me more. And they said, we'll call you back. That's what happened. So there is a Power of Age Expo in Baltimore County, in Timonium on October 30th, and there are a ton of vendors there, and government, private, all kinds, corporate. And a lot of it overlaps different counties, so those are just some of the resources. And that